What happens when a rebuild you've been patiently executing suddenly accelerates faster than you expected? When does a general manager look at his team and say, "We're not building for 3 years from now. We're competing right now"? Welcome back, folks. It's Monday, February 3rd, 2026, and we've got the most ambitious news in years. We spent months talking about rebuilding, about accumulating assets, about drafting well. But today, the analysis from Gabriel Sammy, based on information from Elliot Friedman, suggests the time has come to spend those assets. The target? Robert Thomas, the star center of the St. Louis Blues. We're not talking about a veteran at the end of his career like Ryan O'Reilly, who we discussed Friday. We're talking about a 26-year-old player, signed long-term, who's one of the best playmakers in the league. And here's the bombshell. The Montreal Canadiens are the favorites in the race, simply because we're the only ones who can afford to pay. In this video, we're going to analyze the package Kent Hughes would have to send to St. Louis. We're going to talk about the name that hurts to hear, Michael Hage. Is it worth sacrificing our best center prospect to bring in a ready-made star? We're going to discuss the fit of a center lineup with Nick Suzuki and Robert Thomas, and why this trade would transform the Habs into immediate contenders, not 3 years from now. Buckle up, because Kent Hughes is preparing to go all in. Let's start with the player. Robert Thomas is special. At 26 years old, he already has a Stanley Cup ring from 2019 as a rookie. He's evolved into an elite playmaker. He sees the ice like few others. Imagine him feeding Cole Caulfield, or Patrick Lane if he's healthy, or Ivan Demidov. The article says he's a perfect fit for the Suzuki Caulfield/Slavkovsky core. He's the same age. He'd grow alongside this group. Unlike Reynolds, Thomas has a long-term contract. You trade for him, and you solve the second-line center position for the next 7 or 8 years. Suzuki on the first line, Thomas on the second. That's championship-caliber depth. That's the kind of roster construction that allows you to compete with anyone in a 7-game series. Why does Montreal have the upper hand? Because Blues GM Doug Armstrong isn't foolish. Friedman said Saturday, "There aren't many teams in the NHL capable of offering what St. Louis wants. They want established young players or top-tier prospects. Teams like Boston, Tampa, or Toronto don't have that. They've spent everything. Montreal has it. We have a deep prospect pool. We have extra first-round picks. We have young defensemen to spare. Logan Mailloux, David Reinbacher, Justin Barron. Lane Hudson is obviously untouchable, but we got depth beyond him. Kent Hughes is one of the few GMs who can call St. Louis and say, 'You want youth? I've got it. Pick what you want.' That's leverage. That's power. That's why Montreal is in pole position for this trade. But quality costs dearly. The article specifically mentions Michael Hage and Alexander Zborowski. Michael Hage has been the jewel of our recent prospect pool. The kid has talent, has size, has everything to be a top 6 player in the NHL. The million-dollar question is it worth trading Hage for Thomas? The rational answer is yes. Hage might become a 70 or 80-point player. Robert Thomas already is an 80-point player when healthy. Thomas is certainty. Hage is a bet. For St. Louis, Hage will be the new face of their rebuild. For us, Thomas would be the piece that accelerates the process. Beyond Hage, we'd probably have to include a first-round pick and maybe a young defenseman, since St. Louis needs to rebuild their blue line. This is where it gets painful. Trading Michael Hage means giving up on the dream of him becoming the homegrown second-line center. It means admitting that the timeline has changed, that we're not waiting for prospects to develop anymore. But it also means getting a proven, elite center who can contribute immediately. It means taking advantage of the window that's opening right now with Suzuki, Caulfield, and Slavkovsky all producing at high levels. The text ends with a dilemma. The question isn't whether he can pay, but whether he really needs him. Do we need Thomas? Looking at Kirby Dach, injuries, inconsistency, the answer seems to be yes. Dach could be moved to the wing, where he'd play with less physical pressure, or even included in the package, though his value is currently low. Having Suzuki and Thomas gives you security. If one gets injured, the other holds down the fort. And the fact that Thomas is currently injured might actually help lower the price slightly or make the cap hit logistics easier this season. But the focus is on 2026 to 27 and beyond. Here's what this trade would mean for the organization. It would be a statement. It would be Kent Hughes saying, "The rebuild is over. We're competing for a Stanley Cup now." It would signal to the locker room that management believes this core is ready to win. It would also fundamentally change the identity of the team. Instead of being the fun, young, developing squad, Montreal will become a legitimate threat in the Eastern Conference. You'd have two elite centers, elite wingers, improving defense, and if the goaltending gets sorted out, a complete roster. But there's risk. What if Thomas gets injured again? What if the chemistry doesn't work? What if Hage becomes a superstar in St. Louis? And we're left wondering what could have been. These are the questions that keep general managers up at night. These are the decisions that define careers. If Kent Hughes makes this trade and Montreal makes a deep playoff run, he's a genius who recognized the window and had the courage to capitalize. If he makes this trade and the team flames out, he's the guy who gave away the future for nothing. But if he doesn't make the trade, if he holds on to prospects and the team falls short, he'll be criticized for not being aggressive enough when the opportunity was there. This is a defining moment of Kent Hughes' tenure as general manager. This is where he shows what kind of GM he is, conservative and patient, or aggressive and opportunistic. My gut says he's going to make this trade. Everything points to it. The assets are there. The need is there. The opportunity is there. And most importantly, the window is open right now. Robert Thomas would transform this team. He'd give Montreal the kind of center depth that wins championships. He'd take pressure off Suzuki. He'd create opportunities for the young wingers. He'd be a cornerstone piece for the next 7 or 8 years. Is it worth giving up Michael Hage? That's the question every fan has to answer for themselves. But if you're Kent Hughes and you believe this core is ready to compete right now, the answer is yes. What do you think, folks? Should Kent Hughes trade Michael Hage and other premium assets to acquire Robert Thomas? Is Thomas the piece that transforms Montreal from a playoff team into a Stanley Cup contender? Would you be devastated to see Hage go? Or is the certainty of Thomas worth more than the potential of Hage? How much are you willing to sacrifice from the prospect pool to win now? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and smash that like button, because this could be the biggest trade in Montreal Canadiens history in years. And we're going to be covering every development as Kent Hughes navigates this franchise-defining decision.